I'm Adam Riddy with Blankets for Cancer. I'm the founder of Blankets for Cancer. I am, along with my wife, a family who's been affected by pediatric cancer.
Okay, here we go, Jordan. You like that, huh?
Hey Jordan, how do you like your new high chair? Whoa, look at you. Show us the army crawl. Look at you with your new skill.
We are one of those families that never thought that we would be in the position where pediatric cancer would end up impacting our life. However, it did, and for 2.5 years, we were immersed in a pediatric cancer battle with our dear son, Jordan. Who eventually passed away from pediatric cancer in 2014. We're here in one of our favorite spots, which is in the Juanita Bay Park area of Kirkland. This is where Jordan grew up, where he would come to play, ride his bike, run around, and this area symbolizes all the things of when we were doing well. And the hospital symbolized all the things of when we were trying to save his life. So we would spend times between these two worlds over that course of time. The world of pediatric cancer is like an entirely different world. We would drive over the bridge to get chemotherapy rounds and see on our left and our right people sailing on boats and this beautiful Puget Sound. And knowing that our life was completely different. Our weekends were filled with medical appointments, inpatient stays. It was a tremendous burden, socially, economically, physically, emotionally. It was just a tremendous process. One of us parents would try to be there with him at all times, because as a parent, there's nothing worse than seeing your son, daughter, or child in pain and suffering. And the thought of not being there with him through these treatments was not a question. We were going to make it happen no matter what. That involved a lot of things to be able to provide support for him. We both and our business owners. We did not have the benefit of Medical Family Leave Act, and we would juggle our schedules, often missing work, often one person would be sleeping in the hospital, the other person would be at home. We did as much as we could to make sure that he had a hand to hold the whole time he was dealing with pediatric cancer. Towards the end of his life, Jordan knew what was going on with him. He was aware that he was going to be passing away. He talked about it at length with us. We discussed what cancer had done to his body and why he was dying. We discussed where he might be going after he dies. Many conversations on that level were part of the last few months, few weeks of his life. Even as a almost 6-year-old child, he had the concept, he understood, he wanted to talk about it. One of the things that he brought up during those discussions was that he wanted his cancer process to eventually help other children and other families, and he didn't want it to be for nothing. And so we talked about with him doing some type of charitable nonprofit, some type of charitable act in his honor, to help other families have a better experience, improved experience, and hopefully improved outcomes. We decided to go through and think about what aspect of cancer treatment really needs the most support. And we felt that, yes, research does need a tremendous amount of support, but equally, secondary outcomes like socioeconomic support are very important. The emotional support that we received, the physical support that we received, the financial support we received, the community support we received throughout this process was heroic. We would have never been able to be there for our son and give him the love and support he needed without that socioeconomic support. This is not the case for many families. We would hear in the hallways of the hospital arguments between parents, people under tremendous distress, families emotionally shut down by this process and not able to withstand the pressure that has been placed on families that have been given this path. So Blankets for Cancer really was born from that principle of how do we bridge the gap of this need that's out there that we see, that we felt, and that we benefited from when our child was going through pediatric cancer. The story of the blanket. When Jordan was a young child, we had a friend of ours that turned us on to this blanket that became one of his favorite blankets. It was a very soft blanket made by this company, Satsuma. And if you look back on pictures of Jordan, he was always with this white, soft blanket. It brought him a lot of comfort. So, as you might expect, when he was going through all these troubles with his health, the blanket was very comforting for him. And further on in treatment, the blanket, we would run through these blankets many, many times because in chemotherapy treatments, obviously there's a lot of things that happen with chemotherapy treatments where the blankets will get dirty and no longer be able to be used. You wash them so many times and they get ruined. So we reached out to the company Satsuma around Jordan's 4th birthday and told them the story about how the blankets have been such a big part of his life and so comforting. The owner of Satsuma, Jen, went to the great lengths of making a special custom blanket for Jordan for his 4th birthday and showed up in the hospital and presented it to him. The blankets, which we've modeled and Jen helped us design now for the people who we work with, are very similar to this. And we launched our organization as Blankets for Cancer because part of what we wanted to do was provide comfort and love and support in the same way this blanket represents. We do give out blankets to patients when they go inpatient. This is an example of one of the blankets we give to patients as a gift. The blanket is symbolic of a number of things, as I mentioned before: comfort, love, support, safety. But also the word blanket is what we're trying to do. We're trying to blanket and cover and support families with socioeconomic support. We're trying to blanket and put out cancer. We're trying to put out unmet needs. So blanketing is sort of like getting someone's back, covering for unmet needs and expenses. So, for example, ways that we've helped blanket other families: social workers will communicate with us based on applications on our website for families that have needs to make rent, utilities, car expenses, travel expenses. These are usually a need in the amount of $500 to $2,000 at a time for some need that may make a huge difference in someone's life. So we'll get contacted by social workers for someone who is having a hard time making rent for a particular month, or if their car has been damaged and they're not able to travel to appointments without getting it repaired. They'll contact Blankets for Cancer for helping facilitate support for these families. Families have reached out to us in situations where they've had to travel outside of the state for some special treatment, like traveling to New York for only a specific type of treatment that's available. We've been able to help with supporting travel needs. And so with that, the term Blankets for Cancer has really kind of permeated from this physical object to an emotional support and also financial support. And so that is how we came up with the name Blankets for Cancer. So each month we get about $5,000 of requests from families and social workers to help support unmet needs. The reason why this amount is so much is because about 20% of families at the time of diagnosis already have some type of material hardship, according to research done on pediatric cancer families. That number goes up to 29% after 6 months of treatment have begun. So a lot of times one of the family members, parents, will have to not work, quit work, or will need to go on a leave of absence. So income is lost. There is also the needs for supporting the other siblings during this time when so caregiving costs go up. The travel expenses go up. Oftentimes living away from home, sometimes in housing that's close by to the hospital. There's a number of expenses increase and income goes down. So during this really acute window of time, the financial pressure on these families is tremendous. And so we're helping bridge that gap. We are now supporting communities throughout the United States, but most of our work has been done in the New York, Seattle, Portland, and North Carolina area. We are expanding to other centers, and we'd like to blanket the whole country with this kind of support. That's why we're reaching out and asking for people to help us expand our ability to deliver socioeconomic support to pediatric families, and specifically, for us to be able to respond in a timely manner. No one ever thinks that they'll be in this position. In fact, it's the last position that I ever thought I would be in. And when the chips are down, looking around and seeing that people are there to help support you and lift you up is a very comforting feeling, and it allows parents to respond to their child that's actually really deserves all the focus. By giving us support, you're helping those families feel the support and ultimately improving secondary outcomes like less stress, less anxiety, less emotional hardship, and hopefully improved outcomes in cancer care. So thank you for considering supporting Blankets for Cancer.